All right, so let me go ahead and get started. Now, typically this PowerPoint would be on the screen, but I'm gonna have to just read it from my tablet. How many of y'all already seen this online somewhere, like the chapter launch stuff? Raise your hand. Raise your hand high. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so some of y'all already know about it. How many of y'all have never seen this type of presentation before? Raise your hand. All right, cool. All right, now before we get started, typically what I normally do, I put people on the spot and I ask you what's your name, where you're from, but we don't got no time for that. So y'all can clap and get happy because a lot of times we try. Praise the Most High. Hallelujah. Before you leave, somebody gonna talk to you. All right, so I want to make sure you know, all right? All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna launch this and I'm just gonna talk through it. I'm gonna try to be real brief because I want to get to the Passover portion of things. All right, so first and foremost, this portion is part of the KHM Atlanta Chapter launch. So what does that mean, right? So if y'all been following, how many of y'all don't even know who this person is talking to you right now? Raise your hand. One honest sister. Anybody else? Everybody else know? Okay, cool. All right, so sis, if you don't mind, what are you doing here? She's like, how'd I get brought into? I don't even know what's going on.
Well, my mom was talking to me about a lot of the different cultures and a lot of different religious practices they are having. Honestly, I feel like I need community and to be connected and grounded, and so am I.
Oh, that's awesome. Can I give you a high five on that? All right, that's awesome. All right, and anybody else, if you have family members, friends, relatives, co-workers, whoever, who get the negative perception about our community online, point them to KHM. We're going to change the game. That's the purpose of us being here right now. This is our first Atlanta chapter get together and our first Passover event. You know how long it took for us to get to this? About 5 years in planning just to have this day happen. Right? And everybody is here for this. So just remember, all the marketing we did, advertisement just to get y'all here, and that was only maybe a month or so we had. That's it. Typically, we'll do it maybe 3 months in advance, right? It'll be much bigger. Now we got a marketing team. We didn't have that last year. So next year, we're going to be in a ballroom. It's going to be like 200-300 people in there. But y'all the first ones. Y'all the pioneers. Look around, man. Hopefully y'all here. Next year, the year after that, that's what we're talking about. All right. Now, first I want to say, my name is DivineProspect. For anybody who don't know who I am, I go by the moniker or the alias DivineProspect. Why did I create that name? Well, you're an Israelite. Where's your Israelite name, Ak? All right, so let me get, and then you're probably looking at me and saying, where your fringes at too? I know some people fringe check me already. I already know, I see the eyes. I rushed out my house, I forgot my fringes, and I said, I hope they don't crucify me in there. All right, yes, mama. Okay, mama, you go to mommy over there. Right there. Let's follow her voice. She's straight back there, okay? That's one of my daughters. It's another one of my daughters right here in the peach. Say hi, Haruta. All right, that's Ranisha back there with the copper on. And that's my son right there. Have his hand, it doesn't look interested. I don't know what's going on. He's like, man, I could be on my tablet right now talking to my friends on Discord. That's my little son right there, my baby right there. You see him? Yeah. Yes. I chose that kind of alias because at the time when I came into my awakening of identity, of culture, right? A lot of people mistake what we do for religion. Now, is there a religious aspect to it? Of course, from the outside, right? A lot of people in the know, we call things spirituality, right? Because we're trying to get closer to the essence that connects us with the Creator, right? But your culture dictates your spirituality. When you are devoid of culture, you don't really have a spiritual system. You can get into a religion, but you will always feel a void and disconnect. That's important, right? And that essence is pervasive everywhere, right? It's just that we tap it in because we call on Yah, and we go back to our forefathers and foremothers that's in the text that they colloquially call the Bible. That's really our written records that they put down so that today we won't forget who we are. It is a milestone that was laid down by our ancestors and a roadmap to get us to the point that wherever we may be at, we may understand who we are, right? And that was one thing about the boundary stone. In ancient times, the boundary stone was designed to know, okay, this is my plot of land, that's your plot of land. You don't cross mine, I don't cross yours. If you cross mine, then we got beef. We got problems. And in the ancient times, there was no CIA, no FBI, no police. You can't pick up a phone, call nobody. So what did you have to do? You have to protect what's yours with whatever means you have to protect what's yours. Imagine that. So I'm gonna say this tidbit real quick, and again, this is off the record, but a lot of times in our culture, there may be a perception of misogyny. And a lot of that is dictated based on people who don't understand the background that created the culture. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. So these ancient foremothers and forefathers, they lived in tents because they were what we call semi-nomads. So they would go to pasture because their career was pastoralist, right? They had herds and flocks and stuff like that. That was their sustenance, right? And remember what I just said earlier about the boundary stone. So what would typically happen is that if you have a son and a daughter, there's nothing intrinsically, meaning inside, that makes one better than the other. Any attributes that they receive is based on the society in which they lived in and the cultural mandates that are placed upon them. And one of the reasons why young boys were slightly favored than the young girls was because what I just mentioned to you. If you have a plot of land there, and I have a plot of land here, I got 10 sons, you got 2 sons. And I want your plot of land. It looks like that's gonna be my plot of land. That's not to say the women can't fight, but they typically, according to our culture, we keep them out of war, right? That's why you have to be very careful who you choose, men, who you marry. Why? Because if something happens to you protecting your family, then whoever you chose is responsible for rearing them up. Yeah. That's important. So it's nothing intrinsically greater than the man and then the girl, but it was just that, hey, we got to police ourselves. We got to protect ourselves. There's a great book called The Bedouin Culture in the Bible. Write it down if you don't have it. Bedouin Culture in the Bible. And what is that? There was this guy that lived amongst these Bedouin tribes in the Negev today, in Israel today, for about 20 years. He wrote a whole paper, did a whole book and everything on them. And what he discovered is that a lot of times there are practices that are done or customs that are done in the text that we don't know because, you know, this was thousands of years ago and we in 2022. However, these tribes he was with, they kept the same customs unbroken for over 3,500 years. Same customs. So as he was living amongst them, he would read the text and be like, oh, that's why so-and-so did this, and oh, that's why so-and-so did that, because he lived around people that are still doing it. And that's what happens. We are disconnected from that culture. Sometimes you pick up the Bible, you read it through the lens of religion. You don't look for cultural clues to say, oh, this is why this concept came to me, came to you. Great example of that. Goats. Are goats evil? No. Think about that. Is a goat evil? No. How can a goat be evil? Animals don't know evil. They don't know what's good. They live based on instincts. Now, if you domesticate them, that's a little bit different because you set boundaries, but that doesn't mean they have a theological or ideological concept of what good and bad is. They just know if I do this, there's a penalty. And that's part of the pecking order they've learned anyway, right? But check it. So if you, I just forgot my thought. Oh, shoot, that was crazy. That happens to me sometimes. I got many things in my head. What was I just saying? Thank you. Yes, thank you. I was just playing. I just want to make sure you was paying attention. No, I'm getting older. But anyway, so goats are not intrinsically evil, right? So think about it. Why in the Bible, we read the Bible, you always see people who are bad or evil, they always call goats. Now in hip hop culture, because battle rap and all that, the goat means what? Greatest of all time. The goat is a good thing, right? Yep. You see memes and everything about it. But in those times, a goat is not bad, it's not evil. But why are you calling people with certain characteristics a goat? Think about it. Well, the goat itself is not bad. However, the goat has characteristics and attributes that are then placed upon people, and the things that society frowns upon, they attribute those things from the goat to people. Because if you are a shepherd or whatever, and you have these animals around you all the time, you see different characteristics. You know, with lambs, they're more docile. If you say, go, they're gonna go. You say that to a goat, goat's gonna look at you crazy like, nah, son, you go first. I'm staying right here. They're stubborn, right? They're stubborn. They also are very active. The word for a young goat is called kid. And some of us call our kids that today. Why? Because the attributes for those goats are very jumpy and they spring and they run it around. You call your children kids. Right? But the key thing is, the goat itself, there's nothing wrong with them, but the goat is crafty. The goat is stubborn. The goat follows you when he wants to, if it's beneficial to him. does that mean the goat is evil, but the sheep is good? The sheep, hey, you tell me what to do, I do it. You want to cut off this wool on me, I'm just going to stand here and let you do it. The goat, you try to do that, the goat's going to fight you. But why is that? The reason for that is because of their natural environment. Goats live in arid regions. So a lot of times they would get separated from the pack. So they had to learn to be crafty to know how to survive. That's number one. Number two, they're stubborn and stiff-necked and hard-headed. And the reason why they have to be that is because you have to assert dominance in order to lead the rest of the pack. So the ones that have that characteristic the most is the one that get all the girls. Right? So he's, oh, you know, he's the alpha male and all that. That's another thing. And then there's other things as well. So these attributes are things that these people have seen for hundreds and hundreds of years. So now when they see a person that's crafty, that becomes a negative thing. So when somebody is not just listening and obeying, they're called the goat. But when you do listen and obey, you're called the sheep. You ever heard that term in pop culture, sheep? Or sheeple? That's people who don't know what the heck is going on. They follow whatever society tells them to do, and that's it. That could also be something negative in our culture, right? You ever seen memes about sheep? All those people are sheep that don't know. But in this culture, sheep is a good thing. Somebody that listens, that obeys, that follows, etc. So I'm just showing you these elements of culture. And what we are attempting to do with our chapter is how can you take these things on this old book that my grandmother, great-grandmother, all of them had, and turn into something that can fix societal ills. We as a people of color, everybody in here is black or brown. How many societal ills that we have in our community? Raise your hand. Just name one. A societal ill, something that is adversely affecting us, destroying us. Violence?
Fatherlessness.
You said what?
Fatherlessness.
You said what?
Fatherlessness.
Oh, fatherlessness, okay. Yes. Education, lack of education.
No.
Health, what else?
Poverty.
Poverty, what else?
Health.
Health, anything else? Gun violence, what else? Exploitation on Instagram and social media, because they profit off of our swag. You know why? The swag, and let me tell you this, right? The reason why people of color got swag, check it out. You're probably like, oh, what are you talking about? The reason why we got swag is because we've been given something that we use dysfunctionally. We don't even use it for the purpose it was given to us, and it's divine. So when we turn into something else, people see that and then they're, oh, I like that. They want to follow after what we do. But us being here right now, this is the purpose for us doing it. Imagine all of us woke up and we were doing that right now. Coming together, keeping these statutes, laws, and commandments, learning our culture and identity, teaching it to our children, creating inheritable wealth, etc. Imagine we were doing our stuff right now. That would be a threat to society. They can't have that. You know why? Because that tells them that's an unpaid debt for what they did to those people. And when we rise up in righteousness, right, we set up a standard, and they have to respond accordingly. That's important. So your swag ain't because you cool, ain't because you black, brown, or whatever. It's because you have a divine purpose, and you're doing the wrong thing with it. Not y'all. Generally, we're doing the wrong thing with it, right? And I have a actual lecture coming out talking about why do men chase sex and why do women chase money. It's the same thing. Because we've been given something that is divine purpose and we're misusing it. Why? Men are the providers. Men are the providers. Their job is to provide money, provide provisions, protection, etc. Women are there to cultivate that which has been procreated, to guide it, to nurse it, right? So think about that. So men chase sex because they desire to procreate so that their name can continue. And women chase money because in their mind it equates to provision. Society has twisted that. But innately, if we come together the way we're supposed to, we'd be doing it in the righteous order, a righteous fashion. But when you don't know who you are, you don't chase after anything that somebody throws in front of you. And just think about it. This was calculated. This is not something that was done by accident. We didn't just wake up one day with drugs in our community. We didn't wake up one day with guns in our community. We didn't wake up one day when now the music we used to listen to that should empower us is now turning towards our death and destruction. So, that's why our chapter launches here. So what I want to start off by saying is give you a little bit of what our mission is, and then I'm going to just steamroll through everything else. If you have any questions, then we can talk about that while we're eating dinner and everything else like that. So typically I start this off with some prerequisites. Somebody grab me a water real quick. Anybody? Look at that. Nobody. Like, you look at that yourself, Divine. I mean, you know, if I got to get it myself, I have no problem with that. Appreciate that. Thank you so much. All right. So typically when we start this off, we talk about prerequisites for joining this organization, but we've relaxed it some because what I've noticed is that in a lot of our previous chapters, we always got people off the street coming in. Don't know anything about what we about, what we're doing, anything like that. So I don't want them to think that in order for you to sit through the rest of this, you have to meet A, B, and C. So I've kind of relaxed it a lot. But there is some core tenets that'll be good that if you identify with it, right, it will help what we're trying to accomplish. And if you need some time to learn about what we are, what we do, so be it, right? We're patient. We give you enough time to do it. So one of them is, how many of y'all in here identify as an Israelite? Raise your hand. How many of y'all are not sure? Raise your hand. How many of y'all don't even know what that is? Raise your hand. Good, I like that. I could work with you, sister, because at least you're here. She showed up. All right. And with that, those of you who do identify, how many of y'all try to actively practice Torah? Or at least the principles in Torah? Okay. Here's another controversial one. How many of y'all deal with the whole book? They say the whole book. Raise your hand. How many of y'all only deal with part of the book? Raise your hand. Okay. All right. Cool. That's good to know. All right. And how many of y'all in here are lazy? Raise your hand. Yo, I didn't think I would see no hand. Yo, where's my phone? Let's take a picture of this. Y'all gotta go. You doing it right now?
Oh,
man. At least y'all being honest. I like that. But yeah, the third one
I
is
could be lazy.
being proactive. What does proactive mean? Somebody tell me what proactive means. Raise your hand. Proactive. And the reason why y'all know about it, because we have too many reactives in our community. Because of a lack of a strong home. What does proactive mean? Anybody?
Take initiative
Take initiative to do what?
to complete the task.
Yes, but also what? Start, okay, what else? So pro means to motion towards something. And there you go. And then active means what? It's hard to define it. You gotta use it with another word like activity or action or whatever. Act means the motion of committing something, right? Or doing something, right? So being proactive is you're motioning to do something. Like you said, you initiate it, right? You initiate something so that you can minimize and deduce the adverse effects. You can prevent something from happening before it actually happens. So when black people see the police shoot and kill them in the neighborhood, they're gonna march. Yo, let's go call a march, man. We'll be mad at this. What they don't know is that when you protest, you're always doing it from a position of powerlessness. Why? Because you are an inferior that has to raise your cause to a superior in order for them to act on your behalf, but yet they're the ones oppressing. Doesn't make any sense. But we think it's gonna work. We think it's gonna work. But when you have power, you can negotiate because you have leverage. What leverage does the black community have? Because apparently they're not respecting y'all. What leverage do you have?
Unity.
You do? Well, that would work if we had true unity. We'll unite to do that protest, and then after that we go back and say, y'all, see you next police shooting. I mean, you know. What else? What do we have to leverage? Numbers, okay. What else?
Purchasing power.
Purchasing power. Wow, that's good. We spend $1.445 trillion every year. But that money only sits in our community for 4 to 6 hours and it's out. You know the richest ethnic group in America is? Don't say white. Asian. Asians. Why? They did a consensus on it. Why? Community, culture. If I raise you that you can only spend money with your own before you come out the womb, listen to what I said, before you come out the womb, they talk to that womb. And they raise you in it. Your success is only as good as your neighbor's success. Black folk, I don't remember nobody teaching me that. It's all about me and mine, yo. You better get yours. I'm about to get mine. That's a totally different mindset. And we see what's the result of that. They come and they take over our community.
Yeah.
They gentrify your community. And what do? You move out. What you gonna do? They come to gentrify your community, what are y'all doing? Everybody in here is seeing gentrification of some shape, form. What are you doing about it? Because it might be you next. There's this old adage that was talking about this neighbor, and they saw the military come, and they knock on one neighbor's door. They said, oh, that must be something crazy going on there. They ain't over here, I'm good. Then they move to the next door, knock on the door, get that next neighbor. They're like, oh, okay. Well, they still ain't my door, so I'm good. That ain't nothing to do with me. Oh, mind my business. The next door, a little closer. Like, oh, shoot, that's my next door neighbor. Oh, man. But you know what? I ain't like him anyway. He was trespassing my lawn and all that, so I don't care. And then the next day, they come after you. And guess what? You're calling for all your neighbors to come help you. Ain't nobody there. Because you ain't take a stand. You ain't investigate. You ain't try to do anything. And that's what's happening in our communities. We're allowing it to be taken from us because you have not been taught that you actually do have power. You know what your power is? Your influence. You know what else is your power? Your intellectual property. All the great inventions that has been done in the past 200 years in this country, 250 years, who do you think was responsible for it, but didn't get the credit for it?
Yeah. Us.
Y'all ancestors. So you do have something, but how do you actualize it? How do you put it into motion so that way it actually has an effect? How do you properly execute that? So remember I talked about the culture aspect. When you raise kids with a moral standard, an ethic standard, okay, look, you're only gonna go to a school that has your people in it. When somebody from your country come over here, you have to open up the door and let them live in it until they get on their feet. You have a business, they're gonna support you, but you have to support them back. You hear the police coming in your community, you call up, what you call it, a town hall meeting, or you call what they call that? When neighbors come together and they talk about issues that's happening. Neighborhood watch. Y'all laugh at white people for doing it, but they keep that crime down. There's somebody watching. Black folk, oh, they selling crack, let me turn my back. Hey, I'm not no snitch. But guess what? It's gonna keep happening until your kids are drugged out.
Yeah.
And then what? You turned your back. You're gonna get mad at it. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to take an ancient culture and make it work in 2022. How is that possible? Somebody pick up that book, everything is abstract to them. I'm gonna tell you why. Now look, I know you're probably tell me about the chapter stuff, man. I know you're gonna get hungry, but I'm just freestyling right now, right? I'm just giving you real stuff right now, right? So people pick up that book, they read that book, and they put it back down. Okay, you know, take some time, I want to get to know God or whatever, and then that's it. They don't realize that that's not how you use the book. That's why it don't work. That's why you don't want to really identify with it. That's why, you know, you hear things that say, okay, you're not going to believe in God and not have to do anything or be obligated to do anything. So when you get in a relationship, you should expect the same thing. How does that work? You get in a relationship, you talk to a person when you feel like it. Do whatever you want to do, they do whatever they want to do. Maybe some of y'all like open relationships, but if y'all do, then you can see what's going on with Jada and Will Smith. That's an open relationship. Yeah. So now I'll come back to you. Daddy's girl. That's good though. It's good that I'm in her life.
Yeah.
That's a blessing. So what I'm saying is, in order for you to understand what's going on, a lot of times you think that, oh man, I gotta be right in order to come to God. You know, Christianity makes you feel horrible about yourself. Yep. You gotta just throw yourself on the floor at the altar, spread out, cry, and weep. That's not how it works. How many of y'all did that to your spouse when you went to go meet them? Go sit down, man. I'll be right with you. Go sit down. Unless you want to go over there with mommy. Come on, sit down over here. How many of y'all did that when you met your spouse or significant other? Did you throw yourself after them and weep and cry? Say, oh my God, I love you so much. Nah, I mean, at least I ain't do that. Some of y'all may have. You know, sometimes people say that's simp behavior, right? I'm using terms that we use today as most people identify. But what I'm saying is that's not how you come to a relationship. It don't work like that. You first have to see qualities that you value. I don't know. Can somebody? Yeah, if you don't mind. That's the one that'll be everywhere, right? The rest of them is cool. So you see qualities that attract you, and those qualities are there so because it's something that you identify with or something that you know will complete you. Man, that person has a great plan. If I was to get to know him, man, that'd be dope and stuff we could do together and this and that. Like you start thinking it like that, right? So when it comes to this text itself, the problem is people are looking for religion, but it's trying to teach you the culture. And there's a big difference. You say, what's the difference? Here's the difference. Leviticus chapter 11. Who knows what that is? Raise your hand. Anybody who knows what that is? Leviticus. It's an open book test. You can take it out. You got a phone. You got it there. Listen, I ain't gonna penalize you. I'm gonna show you the difference between religion and culture. Anybody? Somebody just tell me what it is. What's Leviticus 11 talking about?
Clean and unclean.
Where's Shay at? Oh, Shay. So this is the man that flew me out to New Orleans to actually teach a lecture on it. So I ain't gonna answer him. If he asks anything, I ain't listening to him because he already know, right? Dietary law, right? So why can't you eat certain animals?
They're unclean.
Why? What you mean they're unclean? What does that mean? What's in
adverse effects on your body.
Okay, that's good. Now see, so you're thinking around the lines of culture. Religion says because God said don't do it. Don't question God. God said don't do it, you don't do it. He said don't eat that, you don't eat that. So let me tell you the difference. The difference is, one understands why you can't eat it because you observe the characteristics of the animal. Number one. Number two, you understand the ecology of the environment in which you live. And if you remove a particular species outside of that environment, the entire environment will start to break down. What am I talking about? Let me give you a great example of what I'm talking about, right? So there's certain birds that it says you can't eat. You can't eat the horned owl. Well, why? What function does the horned owl serve in an environment? What is their pecking order in the ecology of the environment?
They eat rats.
They eat what?
Rats and mice.
Rats and mice. Rats and mice are known to be a vector for disease. What's a vector? A transporter of disease. So if you eat all the horned owls, you're going to see an influx of vermin infestation. And then guess what? They're going to transmit disease to you and your children. Wealth. I'm talking about properties. I'm talking about bank and savings, investments, infrastructure, hard assets, all of that. Look it up. You can look it up for yourself. Right? So you're dealing with a high context culture, and we're in a low context culture. What does that mean? A high context culture doesn't need to say much to tell you everything. A low context culture has to tell you a lot to tell you everything. That's number one. Number two, a high context culture values the collective. Low context culture values the individual. That's why when America was founded, it was a republic. What's the difference between a republic and a democracy? Anybody? It should be modern terms. Raise your hand. Tell me, just very generally. What's the difference between a republic and a democracy?
A democracy is people vote, but in a republic, all laws are established by the ruling party.
Close. Talking about in terms of like an oligarchy and stuff like that. That's close. A republic deals with the inherited rights of an individual. That you cannot infringe on the inherited rights of the individual. It doesn't matter if the majority is against them. They have inheritable rights that you have to try them before you can accuse them of anything. A democracy is the majority rules. Demos means people, cracy means the rule of the people. That's what that means. It's the difference, right? So what I'm saying is there is an emphasis on the individual in low context cultures, which was really brought to the forefront by the Grecian cultures. And then when you have a Near Eastern culture, they deal much differently. So if you read a text in the Bible, Genesis chapter 1 verse 1 says what? Anybody raise your hand. You can open, again, like I said, it's open book. It's easy. Everybody should know this. Even if you went to church one day, you should know this, right? One Sunday, it says what? God created the heavens and the earth. I mean, the only other one that's easier is Jesus wept. How many of you know Jesus wept? Raise your hand. So Genesis 1:1 says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And then the next verse says what?
And the earth was formed.
And what else?
Darkness was upon the face
Uh-huh.
of the deep.
Uh-huh.
And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters.
If I gave that to you for the first time, would you be able to tell me what that means? Why not? It should be very clear, right? No, you can't, because it's not your culture. If you tell somebody that already knows those words or those phrases before, I give you an example. If Sally kicked the bucket, what does that mean? She what? Really? I told that to a Chinese person that speak a little bit of English. They said, "What? Why they go to the funeral? She just kicked the bucket." They didn't understand because they're not in the know. They're not part of that societal norm that is able to hear these things from a young child when you get older and you understand already. I don't have to explain that to you. I just say it and you know it because you're part of the culture. So how do you get a low context culture examining a high context culture? And if you have these values, this understanding, this disposition, then how do you extract value from this where it is saying one thing, but because of what you was raised, how you thought, you're imposing that onto the culture. So when you see these Asians, they have the most wealth in America, it's because they have something in their culture. They'll say certain things to each other and they know, oh, this means keep the money within us, amongst ourselves. Oh, this means send our kids to this school only. Oh, this means this. Oh, this means vote for that person. They already know because it's already embedded in them. That's what we're missing. That's what we're giving back. So culture, community, autonomy is our tagline. Community. Once you have a culture, and the culture dictates all of the things that the community is supposed to do. Why? Because over time, ancestors have looked at a myriad or a plethora of different options that is beneficial to the community, and they parsed it down to just a few simple things and say, look, we know when you go down this road and make a left, you never come back. But if you go this road and make a right, you come back with fish. So that means we're not going to go right. And then if you want to know, then as a group you're going to find out and you realize there's jaguars that's eating people and they ain't come back. So we use a term. So what happens is we identify that. There's a phrase or a saying. You ever heard the term proverb before? An African proverb, Asian proverb, right? It's based on something that actually happened. And now we're taking that principle and that culture keeps it. So when one person says to another, they already know what's going on. That's what that book is filled with. So if you don't understand that culture and its historical context and some elements of the language, then you might as well just read it like a novel, which most people do. And they wonder why they can't connect with us. Because people of culture, we have indigenous cultures. People of color, we have indigenous cultures. We are tied to our environment. We are tied to our diet. We are tied to our society and the collective. America has taught you the opposite of all of that. Because it wasn't designed with you in mind. So why would it be designed to suit you? Last thing in regards to this, education-wise, that's very important. When you don't teach the proper education to the community, then the community is going to seek anything that's beneficial to them. So what happens is, and I'm going to tell you growing up from the Bronx, what I've seen is that there was some kids that was nerdy in the neighborhood, and the dudes that was hanging on the corner will always bully them. Always bully them. I'm going to tell you something real crazy, right? Always bully these kids, right? And again, this is based on how they were raised. Why? A lot of them don't have a strong family structure. So, kids are exposed to whatever. The media ain't helping either because it's designed to distract us. That's what it's designed to do. So, it tells you through the use of music. And Deuteronomy, the Most High told Moses, these people are going to forget about me. So put it in a song. How many of y'all, memories come to mind when you listen to a song? You think that's by accident? That's by design. Because of the frequency in which we have an affinity towards music. So I can transmit anything I want you to do simply through music. Any behavioral changes I want to do, I simply do it through music. If I want you to get on this wave and start believing in this, I do it through music. So he knew they was going to forget. So he said, hey, put this in a song. So that way when they sing the song, it will testify against them, which means it's a reminder for what you're not doing. That's the purpose of a song. But you can always use that for other purposes if you know what it was initially intended for a particular people group. So they bullying these kids that were smart, that wanted to do something. Parents are blue-collar workers working hard. So they bullying this kid, and not just him, all kids who are squared nerds, whatever kind of words they used to do in the past or whatever. And then over time, that kid gets older, had to go through all that adversity, then he actually gets a scholarship and goes right to college. He becomes a lawyer, a doctor, a politician, a business owner, you name it, right? And the first thing he does is move the heck out of that community. No, you gotta think about it. You got memories tied to that community, people bullying you. Because the culture did not check those kids telling the other kids you are square, you this, you that, you ain't cool, A, B, and C. Where's the checks and balances? And then you wonder where all the money from the community is going. It's leaving. Because they don't want to go back. Why would I go back and help these people where all they doing is fostering individuals that are teasing kids like me? Bullying me, beating me up, take my lunch money. How many of y'all ever seen that show, Everybody Hates Chris? You seen it, right? How does the show open up almost all the time? He gets bullied every day. Imagine that. Every day he gets bullied. Now imagine if that community had a problem and he was going to school for the solution. What do you think will happen when he gets older? He'll never go back. Why? What? They don't love me? Right? Y'all allow these kids to bully me and I'm trying to do something positive for the community? You don't see that in the Asian community. You don't see that in the Jewish community. You don't see that in the Arab community. But why our community? Why are we not checking those things? Are we even obligated to do? Some of you say, oh, that's not my problem though. And that's the problem. You don't want to take ownership. Because you think if something's happening in your community and you live in the community, it eventually affects you or your kids. So if there's gun violence and there's heavy police there and you're getting racial profiled, hey, you're not doing nothing about it, so you might as well just accept it. So that's the second thing. So the community that is actually proactive has a culture that dictates to it the things that are permissible and the things that are prohibited because of trial and error over time to refine the efficiency of the community to work together as a collective. So when individuals transverse that, they bring open shame to the community. And that's what the community uses to keep things in check. Open shame. Now about 60, 70 years ago, we had that in the black community. Open shame. But now, when I go on Instagram, ain't no open shame. I go on Snapchat, ain't no open shame. Everything's just open. And then, okay, gotcha. And then you justify it by putting memes up or all of these words of affirmation to excuse your lack of ownership for your actions that are affecting everybody else around you. Everything that you say and do, when there's a group of people there, as a pebble, small pebble like this, being thrown into a pond. No matter how small it is, because of physics, it will affect everything in that pond through a ripple effect. From one point of contact, and it then extends out. Everything you say and do is affecting somebody, especially on social media. It is. You may not even know it. It is. So, when you get the community in order and they're implementing this culture, because the culture fixes the problems in the community. If we have an issue of poverty, how do we fix that? That book that you look that says the Holy Bible, it has a solution. It's in there. Matter of fact, if you look over there, I created a whole program based on that solution. It's right there. You can, when you're finished, you go over there and check it. People of color, black and brown people, we have the biggest health issues. Statistically, just look it up. Poverty, lack of inheritable wealth, ownership of property, health issues, violence. Somebody said fatherlessness, single parent homes. But what they don't tell you is that black fathers are stepping it up. It's actually curve where black fathers are now getting more involved in their children's life, actively. Not just to be there, but the media, it's not going to tell you that. Once they have a statistic that's seared, they create policy around it. So what does that mean? Welfare system. If you got a man in that house, we ain't giving you nothing. Oh, you married? Nah, you're good. Oh, especially a black man in the house? Oh, no, you got it. But But that black man is out, oh, if you get him out the house. Let me tell you, my mother used to work for welfare, 34 years in New York City. Any woman that came in there, as long as she was not married and didn't have a man in the house, got all the benefits. The moment there was a man there, nah, he can work. What is he doing? Nah, y'all good. What? But we need help. Nah, y'all can figure it out. It's two of y'all, right? Two better than one. That's how they treat it. But what she would tell me is that when a foreigner comes over, you get everything. You're not even a citizen. Don't matter if you got a man or not. Families come over there. All they say is asylum. You want asylum? Oh, we got you. Everything you want. But black, well, y'all brought me here. I didn't choose to come here. But wait, the school books are changing everything. Black folk, you came here to be indentured servants so that you can make better opportunities for you and your kids. Yeah, there's 6 textbooks that was out there doing that. You didn't know that? They was changing the narrative? No? Oh, y'all not involved in politics. Y'all don't know what's going on. That's going to come to your school soon. 4 generations from now, guess what? All y'all came here voluntarily. You didn't know that? Y'all wanted to come here. And y'all chose to be indentured. Yeah, that's how it worked. That's a story from rags to riches. But if the community has their ears open, and they see this coming from afar, proactive, you put preventive measures in place, which means let's create a program for our kids so they know the truth. Show them facts. Let's take all of it, put it in a repository somewhere so they continuously refer to it no matter what happens. The last thing is autonomy. The solution for the issues in our community is in one word, autonomy. What does that mean? This is why every other ethnic group is winning and we losing. What does autonomy mean? Anybody? You can look it up.
Self-governance.
Self-governance. Awesome. Thank you so much, sis. What does it mean to self-govern?
All the infrastructure of a society needs to function separate from any other place.
What else? Anybody else?
Kodesh.
Okay, that's the Hebrew word for it. And again, this is in that text now. Look, all these problems, any problem y'all name, even drug addiction, any problem you made is a solution in that book. But you're not being taught to read it like that. That's why you can't activate it. That's why when you read it, you get bored because you can't apply it really. It's abstract. It's thoughts and ideas and stuff, but it's not nothing that you can execute and see tangible results. So autonomy means self-governance. That is how you solve the problem. If you see crime in your community, then you have to take advantage of it. How? You can take advantage of it. Yeah, take advantage of it because now is an opportunity to show the kinks in the armor of the community. Why do we have crime and drugs in the community? Why do we have guns coming in? We ain't manufacturing these things. We don't have the infrastructure or logistics to move crack cocaine, drugs, heroin, Percocet. Where do you think that's coming from? X? You name it. We don't have, where's your facility at? Do you make prescription drugs? You don't? Oh, shoot, but it's in your community, though. But you ain't got the plants. So who's pushing it in there? Why? Because if you tap into that book with your culture in it, and you realize who you are, and that you have everything you need in it to fix every problem, and not just that, the key thing says if you keep these statutes, laws, and commandments, I will give you longevity of life, and then you will prosper in the land. Longevity and prospering. Well, I heard this in the prosperity gospel, and I'm wrapping up right here. Prosperity gospel. What's the prosperity gospel? Y'all had to have seen it. Sometimes it'd be like 3 in the morning, and I see it come on. I'm like, what is this? Bread cloth? Bottled water that they get from the toilet, and you telling me it's holy water? I mean, think about it. It's cheaper to get toilet water than it is to bottled water. Anyway, so that's something that was actually happening. But anyway, so that's the prosperity gospel. Hey, if you sow a seed,
See, you get a harvest.
whatever, you sow a seed. You sow a seed this, you sow a seed that. God loves you. Joe Austin, God loves you. He's grinning up there. God loves everybody. Doesn't matter what you do, God loves you. Right? That's the prosperity gospel. That's not how it works. That's not how the contract works. If this deity is going to do something for you, you have obligations. It's a contract or a covenant. What is that? Well, any other entity, people, group, anything can bless you or give you stuff, but how do you know it's from this one? How do you know? See, my Isha knows me, right? So if a whole bunch of women send me gifts, I should know, oh, this is her gift. She gave me that. Think about that. We have that relationship. Oh, yeah, I know she gave me that. That had to be her. I know. Turn her, it's all right. I already knew. Right? Because that relationship, right, is a mutual agreement. If you do this, I'll do that. But if you don't do this, then I won't do that. In the text, we have Devarim 28 that a lot of Israelites go to, and they hone in on the consequences that they loosely call curses. You focus on that. Why? Because you're already in a downtrodden state, so it sounds good. You can relate to it. But what if you're actually keeping your part of the bargain? Is there something supposed to come from that?
Yeah, blessings.
It is?
Yeah.
Why y'all not teaching those things? That's what I tell my kids. Why would I start them off with a cursed state? Am I crazy? Why would I tell them that? I just said the reason why you see this happening is you're not being obedient. Is that simple? So what we're trying to do here in Atlanta, and I'm going to sum it up on this, is we're trying to look at culture. What is the black culture in these inner cities? What does black culture look like? What does it look like? Anybody, give me a word. What does black culture look like today?
Good times.
Scratching and surviving. Good time. Hanging in the child line. That's good times. Think about that, man. Hanging in the child line is a good time. Scratching and surviving is a good time.
Wow.
You didn't even think about that. But that's how they're... Oh, okay.
We're lucky we
They're
got
telling me to accept this. It's okay. It's the norm. No, it's not. The state we in is not the norm. What do you mean that's a good time? But hey, we make a joke about it because now it's a sitcom. And it's funny and they attach laughter to poverty. So instead of you doing something, you just deal with it and laugh about it. Y'all don't even realize how that stuff is working. That's crazy, right? But we all have been affected by it. But if you have the proper culture, it teaches you what's permissible, what's prohibited, because if you do these things, you have positive results. If you do these things, you have negative results. And then the community has to take ownership of all the members in it. And we have to hold each other accountable for keeping those things. We have to have a pact amongst each other. And if we are working together like that, taking the culture, using it to revive the dead state of the community, now we work towards autonomy where we can govern ourselves. We can take care of our own problems. We don't need help from any other group because once you ask for help, you are putting yourself in a compromising position. And anytime you're the asker for help or the borrower, there's always going to be something attached to it. But when you're the lender, you call the shots. That text teaches you how to be the lender and not the borrower. How to rise and not go down. It tells you how to deal with your brother and sister in regards to economics, politics, issues that you don't have to go to court for, that you can settle amongst each other if you both know the ground rules. If you're mad at me, but I see your car over there and somebody stole it, I have to bring it back to you. You hear that? That's an obligation of the culture. You have to do. I don't care how mad you are, because the community will hold you accountable. Because it means something, your reputation in the community. It means something. So, oh, you knew someone's car was there, and just because you had to fight, you didn't get it? Nah, there's a problem, homie. We're going to have to check you on that. See, we do set checking for everything else, but when it comes to stuff like that, we don't check each other on that. Yeah, you know that was wrong. You know you shouldn't have done that. Like, why would you? Now you got to go and make amends, because if you try to give the gift, it ain't going to be accepted. We ain't going to do business with you. That's why when your business is tied to your own community and you don't do what you're supposed to do, they stop doing business with you. Your value tanks. Until you get it right, then your value goes back up. Because the community